enabled through more granular data collection, through advanced analytics. And the consumer analytics field today has really been characterized by an increased amount of players entering the market, each sort of providing a unique solution to energy efficiency, demand response, with additional sort of functionalities depending on each vendor. So my name is Omar Saadeh, Senior Research Analyst at GTM Research, and I'm happy to have today's panel, Next Generation Consumer Analytics, Empowering Utilities and Customers. And I'm joined here by Matt Duesterberg, co-founder and CEO at OhmConnect, Wani Park, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Siva Energy, and Abhay Gupta, founder and CEO at Vigily. So Siva, a utility-controlled home energy management system provider, helps customers improve energy efficiency through real-time data. And this field is undoubtedly a crowded space with tighter and tighter competition. Is it difficult to gain brand recognition? And briefly, how do you differentiate your solution from the rest?
Right. I think in terms of brand, it's difficult. I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. You know, for Siva, our customer is the utility, right? So we have relatively limited sort of connection with the customer or the end user more than anything else. So we have to work in partnership with the utility. And I think more than anything else, our goals are to promote the utility, build their brand, socialize their programs, things like that. And at the end of the day, you know, that's our focus. So in terms of building a brand, harder to say. You know, we're not a Nest, we're not an O-Power, it's a little different. I think in terms of how we're different, there's a couple things. I think when we started, and we're relatively young in this space, we've only been in the business about 3.5 years, our expertise has always been hardware, right? We've been selling hardware for 14 years, we've done really well, and you know, we have a great supply chain. We know how to build things fast. And you know, when we got into smart grid, the hand, things like that, our sort of perspective was that you got to have some devices in the home to communicate with the meter, and then also leverage existing networks that the consumer may use, which is typically broadband, right? So, you know, from day one, we built hardware. You know, some of it may have looked goofy. The people are like, what are you guys doing with a picture frame? I don't get it, right? But the point was that let's get it in there, let's start reading the meter, and then no different than what you see with the evolution of, let's say, it's GPS, which is an analogy I use a lot of time. You know, over 35 years, GPS turned into longitude, latitude, into now what is it? Like it's Facebook check-ins, Foursquare, you know, different applications that are completely a derivative of the technology. So that's sort of the approach we take. But in terms of differentiation, I think, you know, we're really good at hardware, but predominantly what we do now is software. We're software as a service company. So.
Okay, and you mentioned all these like multitude of different sort of values you can add.
Right.
And how do you really provide a metric to quantify the value to the end user?
So for us, again, our end user is the utility more than anything else. That's our customer. So whether it's a state-run mandate, specific KPIs that they may have in terms of saying, hey, we got a bunch of money, what's the ROI? We work very closely with those program managers to figure out, okay, how can Siva with their solution set help drive the utility to get, you know, the ROI or the KPIs that they need to do. So that's really it. And I think as a derivative of that, you know, we also have the ability to work with utilities to work with their end users to say, hey, you know, is it a net promoter score that you're trying to hit? Is it, you know, a certain sort of level of engagement you're trying to hit with the customers? And we can all quantify that. And the great thing about sort of the networks that are in place is that because it's very much bidirectional, we get a lot of great feedback on how the consumers are acting, and we can share that with the utility.
Okay, thanks. And OhmConnect is a California startup that focuses on economic DR and behavioral changes. With such a small company entering in the space, how do you guys go about you know, selling your solution to customers, and how do you differentiate yourself? Are you scared that inevitably a large company is just going to jump into the market and see opportunity and sort of take over?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. So unlike Siva, OhmConnect is direct to consumer, so we don't deal with the utility pretty much at all. And part of what Ben Bixby was saying earlier today is that getting into a consumer's home is actually very difficult. And so what we found is that we have a lot of incentives already aligned for the consumer from a social aspect, from an environmental aspect, and from an economic aspect to get ourselves into these homes. So we send out these Ohm hour alerts, which are basically demand response events for peak times. and we have our users reduce their electricity during those 1 or 2 hours a week, and they get paid for it. So from a consumer standpoint, it's almost like a no-brainer. They're getting a cleaner carbon footprint by reducing their energy during peak times, and they're getting paid for it at the same time. And then we've also added this social element where we give normative comparisons on how they're performing against others. So for a consumer, once they understand fully the concept of what demand response is, it's really a no-brainer. So part of that is building the brand, unlike what SIVA is doing, and OhmConnect is doing that. So for your question, Omar, we're getting into neighborhoods and schools in the Bay Area, and if you're in any of these neighborhoods or your kids go to these schools, you'll probably have seen us 2 or 3 times through various mediums, whether it's press, blogging, flyers, door-to-door. And once you get kind of this initial groundwork laid, we find that some of our users become our champions because they understand the benefits that we provide. And that kind of builds this organic growth in these neighborhoods and schools.
Yeah, and we've talked about this several times before. And how do you guys enter into a specific region or neighborhood, and what's your strategy of really, taking over a neighborhood?
Yeah, and I think here the education is key. No one outside this room really understands what demand response is. So we don't really couch it as demand response or proxy demand resource or demand response providers, any of that. We just call it Omar, and we say, just reduce and we'll pay you for it. So we've gamified it a little bit so they get points, and the points are equivalent to cash. So our users just kind of, in their own minds, it's very easy for them to associate an Omar with an opportunity to gain points or gain cash. So the education is really key here because they need to understand that they are providing a service to the grid and providing a value and receiving value for doing that.
Thanks. Okay, so at Bidgely, you guys provide high-definition disaggregation information based on real-time information and green button data. And then you recommend appliance changes to customers and then go ahead with behavioral change. You guys have reportedly stated on our website and I guess many other times that the disaggregation train is coming. So I wonder if you could talk about the value of disaggregation and energy feedback, how we can move from more motivational plays, some things that O-Powers has historically done, to more of an empowerment level.
Right. Excellent. Thanks. So I think the way we start thinking is, in the space of energy, we are far behind. If you think of your bank bills, your credit card bills, your phone bills, they are all itemized. You don't use them all the time, but when you need them, you can go back and you can see what's happening. In the energy space, nothing has changed for the last 100 years. And the time is now. There is data, there is analytics, there is information. So why not have more information on our bills? And that's what we do. We take the data from the smart meters and other sources, and we bring appliance level breakdown as a starting point. And appliance level breakdown basically tells you where the money is going in the air conditioner, in the refrigerator, how much it's going where, and all sorts of analytics after that. Am I inefficient in dryer? Am I inefficient in base load or in AC? Because like you mentioned, the industry is going through waves. The first wave was information of, for example, in-home displays where you say you are using 2 kilowatts right now, and you're in the red zone or green zone. And after a week, people put those displays in the drawer, and we never heard about them. Then the motivational part, which is definitely much better because you're motivating people to be better than their peers, and it's a very inherent human tendency to be wanting to be better than others, and that's what works to a certain level. But most people, when they are motivated, even motivated by saying, I want to be better than my neighbors or friends or peers, they don't know what to do about it. So if you ask consumer to go be the detective in their home, you're going to lose them, and that's what happens. So what we are doing with this technology is starting from the technology where we start telling people where the money is going, then we go by saying you are inefficient in this zone and efficient in this one, and this is how much you can save. So if I can save $20, you're not going to do much on air conditioner, but if I can save $400 by optimizing my base load, and this is how you do it, it empowers people. So the waves in industry were information with in-home displays, motivations with neighborhood comparison, and now empowerment with information which is actionable, and you can act on it. It's not something that asks you to be the detective in the house. So that's what we're
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then going back to SIVA over here, you guys use, as you explained, an in-home display attached with sort of personal photos to enable behavioral change. How does that really influence or improve the customer utility sort of relationship?
Right. So, I think the approach we take, and just for the audience that don't know, we invented a connected picture frame, and this is back in 2000, and so we've been doing that business as a separate business unit for 14 years, very successful. We've been able to sell people not just the hardware, but also approximately a $10 a month subscription, right, to continue to manage that service, and our retention rates have been about 90%. So really, really strong. We've done a really good job. We have a good sort of mechanism for attracting and retaining customers. Now, on the energy side, when we first got started, the idea was, could you provide a communication channel for the utility? A lot of times, we hear about stories in terms of utilities having a lack of engagement with their customers. Customers only call when, it's a building issue or the power's out, that kind of thing. And, the approach we try to take is create a better line of communication so that utilities can provide relevant information, whether it's energy, billing information, or even, community information. And I'll give you a couple examples. I mean, we have a group in SEVA. They're basically called creative services. They're all ex-ad agency guys, so guys from like Saadeh and places like that. They work with the Marcom team, with the utilities, to basically say, hey, what's your newsletter for the next month? What kind of information do you want to communicate over the next month or so? And let's turn it into something beautiful, respectful, and something that customers will engage with, right? So, for example, it could be a refrigerator program, right? Some Energy Star refrigerator rebate program. We'll turn it into a beautiful image, push it to the frame, push it to your app, push it to the portal, do hard, paper collateral, you name it, right? And the idea is to boost the ROI of that investment. And those are very easy things to track. And so with that in mind, when you sort of take that approach and you show immediate results, then the next question is, can you do something similar with DR, right? Which we do, right? Mm-hmm. Same sort of concept, right? It's not just, hey, can we take your thermostat down 2 degrees or whatever. There's a different way to do that, and we can use visuals and sort of that creative approach. And the picture frame allows us to communicate that. But I think with mobile apps and portals, you can really get broad distribution in terms of where people are actually receiving content and how they sort of react to it.
So you guys do the hardware component, you do the software, you've got an ad agency team.
Yeah, pretty much.
As a startup,
yeah.
I mean, how do you guys afford to do that?
Right. Well, I think the great thing is that the energy business is a startup, but the consumer picture frame business has been around 14 years. And it's been growing, and it's doing really well. And so what we've done, for the most part, is bootstrapped and self-funded through the consumer business, and allowing to invest not only just cash, but also in regards to resources, expertise, stuff like that. So the guys that are doing the ads, they also do the same things for the consumer business. They're doing different calls to action. They do a different DR, direct response advertising, so through radio, TV, print ads, stuff like that. So really, I mean, it's just a little bit of an overlap.
Yeah, and previously when we were talking about how you guys implement like a Zigbee controller on that. I guess the real question here to me is, we've seen that being deployed in pilot projects such as National Grid. Mm-hmm. When are we going to be moving past the pilot phase? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? Because a lot of companies are out there in the midst of pilots, generating results. And I think the thing is that the business case for the utility, as well as for vendors, have to align. And for us, I mean, we're with National Grid, we're with a couple of others, and we're in the midst of these programs where we're actually compiling those measurements and the ROI, the KPIs, all that stuff that I talked about earlier. And when the business cases match up, I think there's an ability to scale. Because the thing is that I think for most utilities, especially within the home area network, they're not sure if everything is repeatable or predictable, right? And once you get to a point where you get really comfortable with predictability and repeatability, so that a 10,000 home pilot most likely will look exactly the same as a 1 million unit pilot or program, that's when I think it'll scale. And I think the last thing I'd add too is that vendors need to sort of up the innovation game a little bit so that consumers have some pull, right? Nest has done a great job. I've seen a lot of great examples of what they've done with rush hour rewards. But those types of programs need to sort of come to the forefront and be able to scale.
Okay. So Abhay, traditionally when we look at the information out there, when you look at what is being really taken in, pulled in today, when you talk about consumer analytics, we talk about uniquely age of the consumer, the demographics, their income, and that's all happening, relatively recently. Are we moving forward to a time where consumer analytics will really take in social media and maybe even track your web history? And how does that even play into, an utility model?
So great question. I think we are far away from that.
Mm-hmm.
We have not taken the basic things to the play. You get all these social, you can use all of this information, but let's look at health field, Fitbits of the world. Let's look at social media. Let's look at how people consume information. They consume information through mobile apps, through information which is timely, contextual, relevant. Let's look at, for example, let's take a broader view. California itself has invested $3 to $5 billion in the smart grid infrastructure. And what does consumer get? An hourly data feed a day late? Give me a break. I can't figure out anything from that, right? So as a consumer, I say, where did the money go and where did it benefit me? It was an operational benefit for utilities, and it's not utilities' problem. It's a problem of innovation, like Mani said. So when we say, when are we going to get really advanced, I think we got to get some basic stuff in place, which means can we bring information in timely, contextual, relevant? Giving me a dashboard doesn't help me, right? That's why people are not there. That's why people don't interact, because they have many things to do in life. They can play games, they can interact with their friends, they can have fun. Saving $25 a month is not appealing. I spend $4 in a coffee every morning. So you get to the real reason. You say, how am I going to get consumer to move and be interested in this field? And you go act on that. So when we talk about, no offense to anyone as such in the market, rewards and points and stuff, let's think more. People are in Facebook and Twitter age, right? So let's get them more real-time information, what is contextual. So for example, if I plug in my EV right now, and if I'm on a time of use rate plan, I want to know now. Someone has to educate me now that I'm not doing the right thing, not a month later that you spend this much money in this field. Or if my AC is running right now and I'm not at home, I want to know now. Or some contextual information that means something to me and not some dashboard. So let's get that basics first right. Let's get the right data. Let's get the right information or sort of empowerment to the consumers. And obviously, in the background, this will be enabled by social, by all the the demographics information. So all of that is happening. It's not like when will it happen. The question is, after taking all the feeds of data, whether it's demographics, house information, number of people, age, weather, whatever you call it, you bring it into a box of analytics and you shake the box. What comes out is what matters. If what comes out is not timely, relevant, contextual, it doesn't matter what went in. So it's happening. It's not like people are not using it. It's a question of what are you producing as an output. Can you bring consumer to be interested in managing or looking at their energy, not from saving $20-30 a month. It's something more.
And on that whole, when you put everything in a box and you shuffle it all, there's still a question over there of privacy and the issue of data privacy. Mm-hmm. I wonder if any of you guys want to take a question on, have you guys seen any major challenges with protecting data? Consumers sort of worried about their data. Do they even know what's happening with their data?
I can take the first shot, and then we can hear.
Okay.
I have never seen a major issue. So the standards are very, very, I would say, fair. You as a company, whether you are working with utilities or in some case you're working with consumers, cannot sell consumer information without their explicit consent. That's the gold standard. Now, as long as you live by the rules, it's fine. So most of the time consumers work, utilities work, their worry is whether are you going to sell the data, or is your firewall so thin that someone is going to come and break in and steal the data? Mm-hmm. But those are the concerns. So as long as your technology can withstand the security part, and as long as your ethics doesn't allow selling customer information without customer consent, you're fine.
Any of you guys want to take?
I mean, so at OpenConnect, we kind of look at it at privacy. If you're not pissing somebody off, you're too mainstream. And we're kind of on the bounds of there. So we actually show people and we publicize it if you're actually reducing and you're helping the environment. And we found that our users love this. It's kind of like buying a Prius as opposed to buying a hybrid Camry. It's something it's very unique that people know that you're cleaner and greener. By socializing the fact that people are reducing, our users are happy to see that. So.
I'll just add that, from my experiences with privacy and customers or consumers, participating, it's typically opt-in. Now, you got to take that with a grain of salt, right? Because opting in is one thing, but going through 15 pages of T's and C's and saying, you know what, this is just too painful, I'm just going to hit agree, right? That's the flip side, and that's probably something maybe that you guys are faced with a little bit. But I think from a technology security perspective, it's pretty great. It's pretty tight. The work that we have to do as vendors to work with utilities, it's pretty rigorous, right? They're not messing around. And I think that if you're in compliance, that's great. So really the issue is, how do you manage the relationship with the end user so that they feel comfortable and, as these markets and applications evolve, how public does it get, even though you've opted in? And being able to manage that, and to your point, to go ahead and add, provide that value add to say whether I want to share or whatnot, is there a way to best, position it? That's sort of where I don't think we have yet, right? There's, certain, initiatives that deal with O-Power and guys like that, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be done because people, I think, for the most part, are willing to share, are willing to, do interesting things in conjunction with the vendor as long as the value's there. And I don't know if it's really been demonstrated yet.
Okay. Abhay, I wonder if we could continue shortly, maybe, the conversation we were having on disaggregation and what that really could provide additional services. Is it something that could provide additional or enhanced measurement and verification?
A lot. So, I could talk for next hour, but let me talk in the next 5 minutes. I think this is more of a technology layer. Disaggregation is not a solution, it's a technology. What you do with the technology is what applications you build. And many examples are on the consumer side, you start with energy, but you don't stop at energy. It's about information. The fact that a year back I got an information from our own system which said, congratulations, you're more efficient, you're consuming less energy, and I figured why nothing changed. And then it also told me the appliance that started saving you is your pool pump because it's not running anymore, and said nothing changed. So this is information. I went back and saw the pool was not priming, my pump was not priming fine, which is a bad thing. So information which is not about energy savings is the next step. Something's going to break down, something which is happening in my house which I don't know about and I don't want it to happen. Then you go further. Can technologies like disaggregation get into appliance health? The insurance company would love to know before the water heater breaks down because their maintenance of the water heater is way cheaper than actually replacing it and the water damage it causes if it breaks. Now, when you go to the utility side, there are tremendous benefits. So a demand response program run by, let's take an example, PG&E over 4 or 5 years is somewhere between $100 and $120 million. About 100,000 homes, $400 thermostat given to these homes. How do you start and recruit participants in this program? You basically send a flyer out based on a marketing tool which used all the demographics that you mentioned, right? The age and the probability that someone is a good customer for demand response. They take it and they send the flyers out. I get the flyer, I take that offer, but I have no one in my house Monday to Friday. I'm going to spend $400 from that utility, and I'm not going to give a single ounce of kW reduction back to the utility. So can you use disaggregation to say, from a utility's perspective, here are the top 50,000 homes that are using their AC Monday to Friday, 2 to 7 p.m. Go after them. Don't go anywhere else. So now, all of a sudden, for the same return, your program cost goes down from 120 million to 60 million, 70 million. That's a huge impact in one shot, simply because you know which homes are the right candidates for that program. And you can extend this to all different programs, refrigerator recycling, pool pump shifting, replacement of pool pumps, LED lighting, knowing which home has a lighting which is higher in the evenings, in the morning, before sunrise and after sunset. So a lot of effects there. Next one is the largest number of calls that utility gets. Second largest, I would say, in the customer support center is, why is my bill so high? The first one is generally migrating. I'm moving, so I need to shift my service. Nobody answers that question. So what happens in deregulated markets where there's a big business driver is the customer retention problem. most customers who get a high bill, they don't know how to reduce the bill, but they know how to look for a better rate plan. In most deregulated markets, there's generally a promotion for 6 months, just like we have Comcast promotion here saying next 6 months, $19.99. Same thing you have in the deregulated markets, Texas, Europe, Australia. So when you go there, you basically lose the customer, and that's $400 per home. So if you could answer that question for the customer and say your bill is high because this, and this happened in the last month, and by the way, I have a solution for you. You're not only keeping the customer with $400 a year, you're actually upselling them something else. In the regulated market, this results in either a high bill dispute or a truck roll, and all of those are expensive. So these are huge, tens of millions of dollars benefits to utilities from just knowing what's happening in customers' homes and helping them solve this problem. And then the last one I would point out is MNV. MNV is an industry where 3 months later after the program, you get a report which is basically based on some statistical model where 10 homes out of 100,000 are measured, and you're extending that to, now that is how it has been done because that is what was available to you. But now you have hourly data set. You can do a lot more grounds up MNV using disaggregation. So if you're doing MNV, so because you know how much was this category using before and after. So if you do grounds up or bottoms up MNV for all the homes in the program, you will get next day performance report from the technology and solutions, which now you can use before the next event hits it then. So your learning is much faster, your MNV is faster, it's more accurate. So there are many, many examples of how you use this technology layer to create benefits both for consumers and utilities.
Okay, and you guys, and maybe this could be oriented more towards Lanny and Matt. You guys, smaller companies, focus on the residential market. Larger sort of maybe competitors of yours have looked at smaller commercial, I've looked at CNI, and have, reported some lucrative or interesting returns on investment. Have you guys ever considered moving into the CNI space or even smaller commercial like fast food restaurants? And is there any innovative financing models that you could bring to the CNI space?
I'd say 99% of our focus is residential right now. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it has to do with sort of the compliance of, the mechanisms of deploying software and, what the results are. A lot of what we see too is that with some of this stuff is that when you get bigger and bigger in terms of CNI and things like that, there's sort of a paid for performance sort of element when it comes to DR and things like that. And we're just not really targeting that right now. I think that, yes, there's sort of a logical transition into smaller CNI and smaller commercial and things like that we'll go ahead and undertake. But a lot of that for us anyways will be driven by, what the utility is looking for. So that's kind of where we are with that.
Yeah, and there's a huge opportunity here for residential. It's over 40% of the energy consumed. And it's really untapped right now. And I think towards your point, Omar, with bringing in new consumer analytics, we're able to actually segment each of our customers to see if they're, they don't care at all, or if they're the people that have automated devices that we can do direct load control, or if they're the prosumers who are actually trying to reduce constantly and consistently to our demand response event. And one of the ways we actually can segment this is bringing in kind of that social media data and get contextual analysis on each of our users, seeing if they're responsive to these events because their friends were, or they're responsive to their events because their kids are running around turning off the lights because our Omar rewards are paying for their allowance. So there's a wide variety of each user base. And if we can segment each one and target our message, and Abe mentioned this earlier, is the very contextual, very specific, actionable items for each of our users drive these behavioral changes.
All right, and I guess we can open up for any audience questions out there. Is there someone with the microphone right over there? Okay.
Ali Vojdani of GridBright. About a decade ago, if you went to an average utility, they had about a dozen enterprise systems and hundreds of applications. And one of the first things that the utility executives were interested in was, I need to log into 12 systems to just understand where I am. Now, the world has got more complicated, and I sometimes feel that within my own home, I'm in that situation where I have 20 different passwords to get into systems to see my electricity, what my solar panel is generating, what's my water use, what's my cable use, and all of this. And as a customer, all I care about, I care about energy, water, all of this, but all of them are important too. But more than anything, I care about what do I do about it? How do I manage income, expenses? And there is no single application with a single password that I can go to see where do I sit. And I think that would be one interesting application of analytics, and we may be thinking about this problem incorrectly, because if we think it is an energy issue, or it's a water issue, or it's a cable issue, or it's this or that, somebody will come and say, well, maybe not. Maybe the customers are interested in home support. And I'll bundle a different service and sell them that. And the analytics will go around that. What do you think that may happen, or is that you see your customers asking for something?
So I guess that long question on...
I mean, from OhmConnect's perspective, we're actually trying to do this already. From the energy perspective, you're right. We're not quite touching the water, the cable, others, but we're a platform that we see as kind of a mint.com for energy. We allow you to upload your Nest credentials, your Tesla credentials, any of your Wi-Fi thermostats, your electric cars, your home automation device credentials, and we are a single platform that combines all that data and provides actionable results for you to take action on.
I know you guys at Siva are doing some interesting stuff.
I'll add a little color. So I think addressing your first point in terms of utilities and all these legacy products and newer products, there's definitely an issue, right? The single sign-on element. With the programs that we run, like for example, National Grid and GWP and guys like that, we work with all the different vendors so that there is a single sign-on element, because at the end of the day, the administrator on the utility side, it's hard. You got 10, 14 programs, and you got different passwords, and just the interoperability between the different platforms is very painful. So we work on a very seamless sort of SSO, single sign-on platform, which doesn't affect the legacy programs, but on a go forward, it makes it a little bit easier. I think to address your consumer question about multiple passwords, service providers, and things like that, what we do, at least with the utilities, is that depending on the size of the program, we typically are the prime within the home area network. And so what that means is we'll bring in load control device vendors, thermostat vendors, you name it, other software vendors, things like that. And typically what we do is we actually work with them directly to consolidate on a single app or a single platform, so that once you sign on, you have access to all the devices. So if you wanted to play around with your thermostat, you don't have to have 5 or 6 different apps downloaded. It's all just one app, and you get controls off of that one platform. It's not going to affect cable and things like that, but at least on the energy side and some of the home automation stuff, you'll be covered.
Yeah.
Craig Lewis with the Clean Coalition. Two questions. One is that it seems that in order to enable the kind of demand response opportunities that we're talking about, which get me really excited, by the way, we need to have the utilities participating and providing real-time price signals. If you could confirm that that's a correct assumption, that would be great. And then the real question is, it seems that there's a lot of focus across the three of you on residential scale demand response. And the Clean Coalition is just initiating a campaign to do a net zero energy situation in downtown Palo Alto. And most of that load is commercial. So do any of the three of you have a solution that would work in commercial instances? And if not, why?
I can take the first stab at it. So I think by virtue of selection of the companies on this panel, we are sort of residential and SMBs. Maybe our extension is up to SMBs. I can speak for myself.
Yeah,
maybe not for others. So again, it's a question of these are not same technologies. Their consumers are very different. Residential homeowners are very different from C&I building owners who actually have a job to do this, while residential people are like, I have many things to do. This is a very simple thing for me. So everything about residential and C&I is different. And there are very few companies who actually play in both spaces, and generally they're very, very big companies or very heavy capital intensive. So from a startup perspective, generally it's hard to say why are you not playing in C&I. We chose as a business model to stay in residential because we saw the opportunity there, and we had technologies that make more sense in that. If there was a different panel with different companies, I think it'll be a different discussion.
Yeah, I think I agree. Just on your point on pricing, yeah, we need really strong participation from the utility in terms of pricing, whether it's through the meter, through the cloud, through the databases, or whatever. But we typically will do that very rigorously with all the utilities so that we have relevant pricing. And these things change all the time. And the great thing about the networks that are in place is that as long as someone's diligent about it, we will definitely be diligent. I mean, on the utility side, if they provide that to us, we'll be good. So.
And to clarify, we're not dealing with the utilities at all. We're going directly to energy markets. So we don't need the utilities to provide any pricing. We're actually getting that from the California ISO right now. Every 5 minutes, we pull in data from the California ISO that says this is your price at these locations. And there's 783 locations in California that are providing 5-minute price nodes. And so we're providing that information to our users directly and selling their energy reductions back to the California ISO market. Back to Abe's point, I would say that each commercial building is like a fingerprint. So a liquor store is going to be very different than a Walmart in terms of what they can do from a demand response perspective. At a residential home, you're going to have an AC, a hot water heater, and you're going to have lights on. So we have very actionable items for them to reduce on, but we can't differentiate liquor stores and Walmarts right now. So we're focused residential.
I read some rumblings, and I don't know about the validity of these sort of assertions, but that consumers tend to become less engaged with these sort of programs over time. Is that a valid concern, or are you guys seeing this, or not really?
I can take the first one. So you said it earlier on. The mean time to kitchen drawer issue, right? And being a hardware company, we see that a lot. And I'll give you sort of my take on some of the behavioral stuff we've seen. So people get really excited about this box, this product. It provides all this new information about how they're consuming their house, all that stuff. That novelty wears off what we see in about 2 weeks, in the sense that, okay, this is my typical behavior. Assuming nothing really changes, this is sort of what I consume. This is what it costs. And after a couple of weeks, if you're diligent, you know exactly how your house is behaving. And at the end of the day, that element of consuming real-time information becomes less valuable, right? And so, our perspective is that, that's not a surprise to us, right? I mean, it's not something that we didn't bake into our model. So the element there is, as a consumer, how do you keep them engaged, right? How do you promote utility programs, energy conservation issues, DR, things like that, in a way that there's a significant call to action and consumers are most likely to participate? And that's sort of the approach we take, and that's going back to the original point about innovation and providing something that a customer wants, right? And oftentimes it's not really all about energy information or utility stuff, right? Sometimes it's convenience, home automation, comfort, things like that. And I think that's where the products need to go.
For a certain set of our customers, we're not seeing that at all. We provide a different incentive, though, I think, than a lot of these companies. But we're actually paying our users to reduce their electricity. So if they get a text message and they're in front of the washing machine, they'll walk away from the washing machine for an hour and come back. And it's not all of our customers. It's like if you see $1 on a street, you can pick it up. Some people do pick it up, and some people just let it go. We're targeting the people that pick it up and spend the extra 5 seconds to change their behavior slightly to get that $1.
I wonder if I could just add a follow-up question to that. There was an iCloud survey out there saying that we're looking at home automation, home management systems, and what is one of the major features that people are looking for. And one of them, the major feature that everyone voted for, was family security. And there seems to be a trend with larger companies to add additional services and everything. Do you guys have any plans of adding those different non-DR, non-energy efficiency kind of services to your products?
I'll take, I love this space, right? The home automation and these additional features. I'm a power user in my house. It's crazy, right? I think the thing is that there's this overlap that's happening as we speak, right? There's sort of this utility network, right? Very much SEP, Zigbee, security controls, stuff like that. And then you have these other guys coming in, overlapping networks. So you know, if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you know, you have the Iris systems, you have, you know, Dropcam, Nest, Revolve, all these hubs coming out, smart things. And I think the thing is that it's still relatively early, but they're definitely overlapping, right? And the technology is there and the networks are in place so that for a vendor like Steve or any of us, it's relatively easy to get in there. You just have to take a position on what's the right thing to do, right? Because you can't do them all, right? You know, you can't do lighting, blinds, you know, all this home. You got to figure out what's best. And you know, from our perspective, we look at it like leveraging the utility network. You know, what can we do to add on features that consumers really want? And I saw that survey as well, and I think there are elements there that are completely valid. And you know, it's just a matter of executing on it.
Definitely. I know we've got, you know, a few more minutes left, so if we could end on somewhat of a figurative note over here. Let's say you guys take out your crystal ball and look to the future. What is the one or two features or aspects that will really help move forward next generation consumer analytics? If you want to go down the line, start over with Matt.
Sure. I mean, I think there's really two aspects here. You got transparency in the data, and then market mechanisms placed to allocate value to the right places. So I think I'm a little bit biased here. My background's in financial trading, and when I first started, I was kind of on the front lines of the New York financial transmission market. And we were a two-person team out of Washington, D.C., and we were taking tens of millions of dollars off the table from the New York market. It's because we're able to more efficiently predict and forecast where energy transmission would flow against the incumbents. And the incumbents had been forecasting for 50 years where energy should be flowing. And you got two people in a shop in DC able to provide this innovative solution based on quant trading firm. So I think if you have the right data and then the right values in place in an open market, you're going to drive a lot of innovation. And I think that's really what's interesting about this industry is that we're starting to get a point where we're having all this data come in that we can do this. 10 years ago, we couldn't have all of these startups and innovations doing this because you needed a central node to deal with the generation, transmission, and distribution because the system's too damn complex. Now you have all this data coming in from generation, from smart meters, from SCADA data, and that allows us to start siphoning off pieces of what used to be in that central node to foster innovation and allow the central node to really concentrate on what they're really good at, what's really underrated and undervalued here, which is the reliability and stability of the grid.
Okay, Wendy?
I would just say that, you know, the amount of data that's being thrown off from meters as well as other applications that people use is incredible, right? It's scary, probably. I think the element of using that data in an effective way, at least from my perspective and a SIVA perspective, is what can you do to make your home very conscious and thoughtful, right? How do you turn your house into a thoughtful home? And the idea there is that there's complexity there because in my house there's 4 people, right? And we're all a little bit different. Our schedules are different, our preferences are different. But how do you sort of incorporate that element in your home through the data, through applications, so that there's a true value add above and beyond real-time data information or whatever? You know, that's sort of what we look at. And I think the interesting thing is that the technology is there. I mean, I was telling you yesterday about if this and that, right?
Yeah.
And that is like my Bible. That is my, you know, that's my thing. And everything I do is within, you know, to automate my home is through if this and that. We need something like that in the industry. And I think that's just sort of the spearhead of the industry. But you know, there's other things coming. But that's sort of how we look at it.
Awesome. And Abhay, take us home.
Yeah, so I'll pick on one of the comments. The technology is here, right? So if technology is here, what has to happen for this to be adopted at mass scale? One of the strong beliefs we have is you can't do analytics without the data. You need the data. And data is definitely the usage data from smart meters is the most accessible through smart meters, through utilities. We go directly to consumers, but it's harder. And when you work with utilities, you have access to pretty much everyone on the planet. So if we draw a logical conclusion, the technology is here, we need the data, let's say we are working with utilities, then our high level, I would say what needs to happen is utilities need to be becoming a customer-oriented organizations. So the answer should be, why does utility not care about their customers like AT&T does? Because AT&T is going to lose them to someone else. Now that's the case in half of the world. You go to Europe, they care. In fact, so we are working with information about 13 utilities. Half of them are in outside North America. And that's because their business drivers are so strong They are losing their kWh business every day. 25% penetration in some of the markets for solar. In another 7 years, they're going to lose majority of their kWh business gone. So they're panicking. They're moving now, and because they're moving now, they have to become customer-oriented companies. And if they are becoming customer-oriented organizations, they will pick up all these technologies and create a stronger bond with customers. So I think it's somewhat of a change in the mindset of utility as an organization, which is already happening in the deregulated markets. In the regulated markets, it's sort of happening much slower, but it should happen.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.